Thanks.
That's fine.
Madeline is an old friend of mine, so I was thrilled when she asked me recently if I could host tonight's event. I would like to begin by telling you just a little bit about Madeline. In her book, she says, "What I write about is deeply rooted in my formative years in Port-au-Port as the middle child among 6 children, a small family by Newfoundland standards. I fondly remember my years at Memorial University, where I reveled in the array of literature courses. Later, I shared that excitement with my high school students in Grand Falls and St. John's. In time, itchy to move to the mainland, I decided to put down roots in Nova Scotia, where I worked extensively in the areas of human rights and gender equality. I am an avid reader and have reviewed books across many genres for Atlantic Book Today. 2 of my poems and short stories were published in the anthology Each Book a Drum, 10 Years of Halifax Humanities, and I read at their book launch and at Word on the Street. I started writing poetry when my young children were taking naps. Recently, I was invited into my granddaughter's classroom in the Yukon to talk about my poetry via Skype. I am struck by the common threads emerging in the poems written over those many years, thus the choice of Interlaced as the title of my first book. Tonight's book launch will be videotaped, as you can see, so Madeline can share it with her family and friends who are unable to join us tonight. The camera is set up to face Madeline and guest musician Mike Walling. Madeline will be reading poems from her book, and the readings will actually be interspersed with music performed by violinist Mike Walling. Madeline.
Is it okay if we get a group shot? Anybody have a problem? Okay. Just a hug. Last person to find a parking spot, my daughter, Paul. Thank you. There's seats down there, or you can sit over there, but there's some seats at the back. Sunflowers, oh, I like that. Okay. All right, it's my turn to talk. Thank you to Olga. She called me her old friend, but I'm her young friend.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I should have said long-time friend.
The word sticks in my head. Yeah. And she did read the bio that is in my book, and I just wanted to comment. I think that was harder. I think I spent more time on that, editing that, than trying to edit poetry, because I spent so much of my life writing resumes, which are totally different. Just, about selling all this stuff, yeah. A big welcome to, I have a really good turnout here, and great people that are my neighbors, people I know from Halifax Humanities, people I know from all various things, so wonderful. I'm also, welcoming or sending out a thank you to the people who really wanted to be here and couldn't be, and all the people who have encouraged me and supported me in many, many ways in this process. I already have, some of you will be seeing the book for the first time this evening and hopefully buying one. I've already mailed out complimentary copies to my immediate family members, and this included one special niece in Toronto with whom I have a special connection. And as soon as she got the book, she doesn't like being on Facebook or sending emails or anything, and she actually immediately sat down and wrote me a card. And this is just a little piece of what she said. She had talked first about how much she liked the cover, and then she said, and I'm going to read it here where it's bigger, about the poems. She said, "So far, I've read a few, but I'm taking it slowly to be able to appreciate each one separately. The mood, the imagery, the choice of words, and the way it briefly recreates a small glimpse of memory. So, you know, this is beautiful, beautiful coming from my young niece. In terms of tonight, yes, my book, by the way, is, as you've probably seen, even if you look at the table, it's a slim little book. It has 18 poems. When I set out to do this project, I said between 18 and 20 poems is what I wanted. And the extra two didn't really fit the theme. I agree with Andrea, you know, reading them slowly is the way to go. So tonight I'll be reading 8 poems, and they're grouped kind of in 2s and 3s, based on similarity in the mood or the tone of the poems. And then in between, my friend Mike Walling will create a little space between these groupings of the poems and help set the mood for the next poem that I'll be reading. I should add to the little introduction from Olga, Michael is, and my youngest son Jonathan went to school together and have been good friends for a long, long time. And so when I was thinking I wanted music, he was the first person I called. Thank you. Just make sure cell phones are turned off because once I start this, it's going to go through to the 8 poems. I hope mine is off. Not in good shape. By the way, right now, can you hear me at the back okay right now? Okay. If at any time you can't hear me, just do something like this, and I'll just pump the volume up. But it's a nice enclosed space, so it's not hard. All right. So I think we're ready to start. Listen. That's the wrong one. Let me get to my notes here. If people have the book and they want to, you know, open it, I have no problem with that. I like sometimes seeing poems as I'm having them read to me. The first poem I'm going to read is called Summer on Belvedere Street. And before I pick up the book, I'm just going to do a little intro to it. Sometimes even in a village in the middle of nowhere, a little girl can get lucky. And not because she won a prize at church bingo. This poem is about a little girl, me, who got lucky just because she happened to be the middle child. You see, this particular summer, my dad, in his new job as school supervisor, he had been a teacher up till now, or a principal, as his new job as a school supervisor had to work away from home in St. John's, leaving Mom to fend alone with 5 children. It was decided that one of us would go with Dad. Well, the oldest, 14, was needed to help with the 2 little ones, 2 and 4. And the next oldest, 10, being a boy in a household of girls, was never around anyway. So that left me, 8 years old and in the middle. Of course, at the time, I had no inkling of why I got to go, but I remember how lucky I felt when I was given the news. There we go. Summer on Belvedere Street. Pungent smell of hops from nearby brewery, hot pavement, shady trees. All dressed up one Sunday. Tea with the Smythe sisters, spinsters, Gran told me. No kids of their own. They made a fuss over my crisp cottony dress and fancy shoes, and fed me lots of sweets. Weekdays on my own at Bannerman Park. First time on a playground. Merry-go-round whirled me so fast holiday and flew off into the gravel. Staff tended to my cuts and scrapes. Headed out one evening with my reluctant dad down the hilly streets of St. John's to the Gosling Memorial Library. Children's section already closed. It was dark outside as we made our way home under a starry sky, me happily clutching my very first library book, all about the constellations. That summer on Belvedere Street with Dad and Gran and my Uncle Joe, a lot of firsts, a lot of time to think on my own, a lot of time on my own, a lot of time to think. That grown-up world had started to rub off on me. Okay, I'm just going to take a drink. It's really dry in here, and I'll go on to the next poem. The second poem is called Just a Vase. If anybody is following, then I have the numbers, I guess. Just a Vase is on page 9. Among your gifts, a vase. You loved fragile, delicate things. 2 white china hands gently cupped as if in prayer. Dainty nails tinged a rosebud hue. Excited, I ran to your bedside with it. You were feeling ill. Then it happened. Dad said he could fix it like new, but you were sobbing. I crept away in shame. Awake that night, I tiptoed into your bedroom, drew close beside you, and whispered through my tears, Mom, I'm sorry. How was I to know that on this Christmas morn, more was shattered than just a pretty vase? And after we have a minute for that one to sink in, or a second, that's a rather sad poem. There, obviously, in my book, there's threads of a little girl having a good time, but all of us have sort of darker times too, some grief. But the next 2 poems I'm going to read, called Dactyls for Dad and Easter, are much lighter, and so I asked Michael to play something light to make the transition. more of the skipping and frolicking when you're a child. So the next poem I'm going to read, which that was a good setup for, is called Dactyls for Dad. It's I think the earliest poem that I've kept. And I say this poem is akin to a slideshow of select early childhood memories. There is no mention of birthday parties, or playgrounds, or swimming pools, or riding a bike. Those weren't in my childhood. There is the time I got my new metal sand pail stuck on my head, with the handle lodged tightly under my chin. There's mention of playing baseball with my siblings, not on a big playground field, but out in the backyard, tiny backyard, which was just black earth, basically. And it's about my bouncing a ball, which landed in a milk jug on the kitchen table when my aunt was visiting. My mom had gone off to have another baby, and I was probably acting up. And anyway, this promptly landed me in the pantry, the dark pantry. So, Dactyls for Dad. And my dad was brought to the West Coast, to Port-au-Port, as the principal of the first one. I think it was a two-room school. Yes, it was a two-room school. Trotting to school on your coattails, camel hair slit at the back. Baseball while dinner is cooking, home run, but the runner falls flat. Berries to pick midst the brambles, bounty of bites, empty pail. Lunchboxes fixed, filled for a picnic, black clouds, sad tears for the gale. Trapped in my sand pail till noon hour, a soldier who's scared as can be. Kicking my way from the pantry, no boogeyman's gonna get me. Slow down, you trip and you'll stumble, but an inner voice won't let me be. You okay, Olga? You got some water?
Sorry about that.
It is, I find my throat is really parched here, yeah, okay. Give you the second there, and the next one is, there's my sheet, Easter. That. I didn't put them in any order that they came in the book, I made a card for myself. That's page 10. So, of course, the place where I grew up in Newfoundland, the little community, was probably 99% Catholic. And it was such a small community that without the church you wouldn't, that's these Easter and Christmas. And St. Patrick's Day, those were the three big ones. You'd have a holiday on St. Patrick's Month. So, Easter. Dad, adept at dropping shiny colored eggs noiselessly into 6 straw baskets suspended on doorknobs. Irving Berlin's classic played over and over on the piano. In your Easter bonnet, with all the frills upon it, lyrics committed to memory. Mom, the monarchist, strutting up the church aisle with all her minions in tow, outdoing the queen in the millinery department. And one year, my very own chapeau, love sewn by Mom. Spring motif of flower petals, crocheted strings tied tight under my chin. Easter, such a happy time. Stressless for Mom and Dad compared to Cousin Christmas. Spring was in the air, a lightness in our step. Anyone again? Just one sentence here. So from this section section of the book, if you looked at the table of contents, the first half is my memories, sort of, and the second half is more love poems. And so Michael now is going to play a section of Leonard Cohen's Take This Waltz. Hi to the people who just came in. So that's what was playing on my CD player in my kitchen one night, and this is my poem, Take This Waltz. The dance, late in my kitchen, counting every heartbeat. I lead, you lead. We sink into synchronicity. That's it. This is just a short poem. These are all quite short, actually. The next one is called Long Distance Love. Connected across continents, the sound of your voice, arousal by accent, turn of phrase, touching me, caressing me, hanging on. They're like little haiku poems. And the third one in this section is to a friend at Christmas. You've touched my life, but gently, with warmth to melt the frost of many winters, and laughter when my spirit needed tickling. Like a child stumbling upon a hidden treasure, with joyous disbelief, I found in you the humanity in me, eager to break through, to surface. Tu es un vrai, and you are a real friend.
Merveilleux.
Michael is now like going to, we're changing gears again, I guess. Am I in the right place? No, we've gotten, we got through it so fast, I can't believe it. We're at the last poem. Maybe what I'll do first is do the lead into this poem. This poem, the last poem in the series of readings, is called Nap Time with Elizabeth. And Elizabeth is my granddaughter. She would have been a baby at the time. And she's now 12 years old. And this is the little girl that told her teacher that her grandma was a poet and he was doing a poetry project, and he called me and set up Skype in the classroom, which is such a special thing for him to do. It was great. So this I was visiting, like I say, when she was about I visited when she was 3 months old. Her mom was on maternity leave. I visited again when she was 6 months old, and my son then was off on paternity leave. When I was a young mom, getting a baby down for a nap on a schedule meant a little free time for me to write or play the piano. To be honest, however, it was often a time to catch up on the non-ending household chores. However, on a visit to Whitehorse in 2005, nap time with my baby granddaughter was a totally different experience. And so Michael's going to play Brahms' Lullaby to set up the baby to go to bed. Lying soft together on the big messy bed, baby bottle ballet, blurring the edges between sustenance and sleep. Like a skater making seamless strokes across a shimmering pond. Or a dance pair suspended in waltz time on a dimly lit ballroom floor. Deep blue eyes fixed intently on mine, like little sentinels on duty. A warm miniature fist locked around my pinky finger. Baby breath timpani punctuating her passage into dream world, like the stealthy arrival of soft, feathery snowflakes in winter. Curled up beside you in this comfy cocoon, I remain transfixed, pondering the infant wisdom gifted to me on a big, messy bed at nap time. I'm almost crying. That's the last poem that I'm going to read, and maybe I'll pass. Now you can.